Welcome back to the channel. We're back with our Edge of Eternities commander with Mememnon, the right hand. For 3 and 2 blue, you get a 3/4 with flying, where you may look at the top card of your library at any time, may cast artifact spells from the top of your library, and artifacts you control have tap, add blue, spend this mana only to cast spells from anywhere other than your hand. So we have plenty of artifacts that we want to get on the board for super cheap in order to make sure that we could tap them for that mana in order to keep casting more and more artifact spells off the top of our deck. This way we could eventually have one artifact that will win us the game in the deck, or one big play of making all those artifacts into creatures with Cyberdrive Awakener in order to win the game. Maybe a Blightsteel Colossus because we're going to have the mana to cast it from all of our artifacts we have on the board. But that's just the general overview of the deck. Let's get into it card by card. With Aether Spellbomb to start off, sacrifice this to return target creature to its owner's hand, or you pay 1 to sacrifice it, draw a card. Super cheap one we want to cast off the top of our deck. We could tap it for the mana to cast a spell at the top of our deck. Then that mana we were going to spend to cast something off the top of our deck, we can instead use it to use its ability because we don't need to tap it for the ability. All we need to do is sacrifice it so it could still use that ability there. Arcane Signet for some additional mana on top of our mana, because I hear you like mana. Cloud Key, make it so your artifacts cost 1 less to cast, and then this also taps for some mana on top of that. So it's a 3 mana mana spell, allowing us to tap for that blue, but also just the cost reduction is really nice with this one. Codex Shredder, target player mills a card. Potentially, there's certain times with this deck where we have 2 lands on top of the deck following each other, or just a land in general because we can't actually play lands. But we don't want to run into that problem. We want to make sure that we can keep on going, cast our Darksteel relics, our Ghoul Color spell, all of our things we're about to get into. So let's go ahead and mill that land to keep on going. I also pay 5 mana, sacrifice this in order to return target card from your graveyard to your hand. Get that land back for 5 mana if you really need it. Darksteel Relic. Once again, we just want like some cheap spells that we could get on the board, because it's basically a 0 mana tap for blue spell at that point. Everflowing Chalice, we're going to have plenty of mana to tap for on the board at a certain point in the game, so we could kick this as many times as we have 2 times that many. We could tap this for a lot of mana at a certain point in the game, is what I'm trying to say. But overall, just a really good ability, allowing us to, use this to get the rest of our artifacts, essentially. Ghoul Color spells. Each player puts the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard, allowing us to, once again, same as Codex Shredder, we want to make sure that we're not running into a problem where we're running into a whole bunch of lands. And when we aren't running into lands, we can just tap it for the mana. Hamlet Awakening, 2 mana for some blue mana on top of cost reduction. This is basically makes you so you have a free Howling Mine if you just cast this spell, or basically any of your 2 mana artifacts, because you're going to be having those this tap for the blue mana plus the mana from the spell itself. Howling Mine, at the beginning of each player's draw step, Howling Mine is untapped, which for us it's not going to be because we're going to tap it for some mana. That player draws an additional card, so we're going to get to draw power. None of our opponents are. Of course, unless Mememnon's not on the battlefield. Which, there's quite a few times your opponent's going to remove it. Inside Engine, put a charge count on its artifact and draw a card for each charge count on it. When we don't necessarily need to draw some cards, because we're going to be casting stuff off the top of our deck, we just tap it for the blue mana, but when we need those cards off the top of our deck, let's go ahead and draw them. Lightning Grease, in order to make sure that our artifact creature spells could tap for the mana the turn they come out, on top of, just having Memnon potentially swing in for 7 times, because that'll be what you need for commander damage. Lotus Petal, you don't necessarily have to sacrifice it for the mana anymore. You could, in order to get Memnon on the battlefield a little bit faster, but you can also just tap it as a 0 mana tap for blue. Really fun ability there. Midnight Clock, tap add blue, or tap add blue, spend this mana only to cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand. But yeah, also you can put an hour counter on this. At the beginning of each upkeep, put an hour counter on this. 12th hour counter on it. Everyone draws 7 essentially. But yeah, allows us to get those lands on top of our deck as well. But also just a really good mana ability. Mishra's Marble. You sacrifice it to look at top player's library, draw a card to begin next turn's upkeep, potentially allowing us to cast some spells at flash speed if we want to draw them, and then have during our opponent's turn. but also allows us the ability to just tap for some blue mana when we don't need that ability. Mystic Forge, load top card of your library at any time. Play artifacts from the top. You also pay 1 life. Exile a top card of your library, allowing us to get around those lands. When we're not tapping it for that ability, we tap it for the mana. And also, sometimes you want to make sure you can have a way to access the top of your deck without having Memnons on battlefield. Repurposing Bay, sacrifice another artifact, search your library for an artifact with mana value 1 greater, allowing us to, get rid of our Sapphire Medallion, or you get our Midnight Clock, or something else that we need. All depends what you need at this time and place, but potentially just some good added value there. Sapphire Medallion allows us to cost reduction there, so we're in a mono blue deck, and on top of that cost reduction, we're gonna get the it to tap for some blue mana. Sensei's Defining Top, really good card in this deck. Let the top 3 cards of your library, put them back in any order, allowing us to make so we don't keep running into those lands. You also tap it to draw a card and put Sensei's Defining Top on top. You could also, it's basically free because you're just going to be able to keep casting it from the top of your library on top of that. But it does still cost 1 mana, but if you're casting it as an artifact spell, that's basically going to be that mana. Soul Ring, because, Soul Ring. You're just going to get it for free, essentially, off the top of your deck on top of that. Swiftfoot Boots, same as Lightning Grace, we want to make sure we can cast use our artifact creatures the turn they come out. The One Ring, put a burden counter on it, draw a card, equal to the number of burden counters, give you some protection. We're in an artifact deck, it's a really good card in this deck, obviously. But also on top of that, we could make it so we could tap this for some mana when you don't necessarily need to draw cards. Unwinding Clock, we're going to be tapping our things for mana quite a bit, so let's make it so that we could use it again and again, since we have ways to give our artifacts flash on top of that. Urza's Bauble, normally it's 0 mana, just look at the top card, look at a card at random in target player's hand, draw a card at the next turn's upkeep. We don't really care about that ability. We just want a 0 mana tap for blue. Urthos Research Craft, a new spell out of Aether Drift. Edge of Eternities. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, draw a card, put a charge counter on this card, and flying +1/+0 for each artifact you control. This is going to be a big creature on our board. We're going to have plenty of ways to crew it, station it. But yeah, also additional draw power is nice on top of that. Voltic Key, pay 1, untap target artifact, allowing us to tap some artifacts again and again. Or when we don't have an artifact we want to untap, we can just tap this because it's a 1 mana tap for blue. Welding Jar, you don't need to have it untapped in order to sacrifice it, but you could tap for the blue, then use the secondary ability on top of that. 0 mana, tap for blue. And then, maybe if you just want to be a jerk, you can run Winter Orb. As long as Winter Orb is untapped, players can't untap more than 1 land during their untap steps. So we're going to make it so it stays tapped during our opponent's turn. And we're going to leave it tapped for our turn. This way we can untap our stuff and our opponents can. And it's just really mean. And you probably don't want to actually run that because everyone will try to destroy you, but you'll probably be able to destroy them first. But it is just a really fun card there. And then for our creatures, we have Artificer's Assistant. Whenever you cast a historic spell, scry 1, deciding if we want that artifact to stay on top of our library or not, or if we want to put on that land on the bottom. Battered Golem doesn't untap during its untap step. We don't care about that because whenever an artifact comes into play, you may untap Battered Golem, basically tap for blue, cast the artifact spell with him, untap, and you can tap for that blue again. Really fun ability there. Blightsteel Colossus, we need a way to actually win the game. So let's do, I was about to say it's a 12-12. But nope, let's do an 11-11 Trample Infect Indestructible creature, because we're going to have the mana to cast it. We have plenty of ways to tap for blue mana in this, essentially for 0 mana. Chrome Host Sea Shark, 3 mana. Whenever we cast a 9 creature spell, incubate X, where X is a spell's mana value. It's not so much them being creatures that we care about. Create an incubator token with X +1/+1 counters on it. Oh, wait. Yeah, so then it transforms into a 0/0 for X artifact creature token. So we just transform it into another mana source there for us. We like to see it. Cyberdrive Awakener. Other artifacts you control have flying. Whenever creatures Whenever this creature enters, each other non-creature artifact you control becomes a 4/4 artifact creature until end of turn, allowing us basically a way to swing in with all these 0/0s that are now 4/4s. Emery Lurker Lock, affinity for artifacts, so we're going to be able to cast for just a blue. Whenever she enters, mill forward, then choose target artifact in your graveyard. You may cast that card this turn. You could also use the blue mana from the artifacts abilities in order to make sure you can cast spells from the graveyard because it just is anywhere other than your hand, not necessarily just the top of the deck. Ethereum Sculptor, another artifact we can tap for some mana, along with that cost reduction. Forensic Gadgeteer, activated abilities of artifacts you control cost 1 less to activate. This effect can reduce it to less than 0, of course, but whenever you cast an artifact, investigate, allow us that draw power in order to get some additional, cards off the top to get those lands out of the way. Foundry Inspector for some cost reduction along with being an artifact himself. Liberator, Urza's Doctor, giving our artifact spells flash. Most things are gonna be less than his casting cost. Less than his power. So that'll be allowing us to basically play during our opponent's turn on top of our turn. Bedim, Console of Innovation, giving our artifacts hexproof, allowing us a little bit of layer protection there. Some draw power while you're at it, but we're gonna not to have that many high mana value artifacts, so we may not get that in all honesty. For Extreme Metamorph, why stop at one of our why did I forget the name? Blightsteel. Yeah, why stop at one Blightsteel Colossus when you have 2 Blightsteel Colossuses or 2 Winter Orbs? But no, just overall really good ability there. Allows us to tap for some additional mana. Allows us our second 2 copies of our best artifacts, all we have on the board at the time. Sign Master Adopters, whenever you cast an artifact spell, create a 1/1 color Adopter artifact creature token with flying, but we don't really care about them being able to swing in, we just want them as more sources of mana there. Shimmermere, allowing us to once again cast our artifact spells as though they had flash, allowing us that additional turns during our opponent's turn. Solemn Simulacrum for some additional mana, additional way to tap for some mana, additional draw power while we're at it if we have a way to sacrifice it. Or, Reality Chip. Attached to a creature, you may play the lands and cast spells from the top of your library, allowing us to get those lands out of the way in another way. And also, we don't want to have to always wait for Memnon to cast stuff from the top. Dot Monitor, whenever this creature enters, draw 2 cards. Affinity for artifacts, so we'll tend to get it for just the blue, because we're going to have plenty of artifacts on the board until we get Vandal Blasted. Of course, but the draw power is super nice. Trinket Mage, search the library for an artifact spell with CMC 1, reveal it, put into your hand. We have plenty of things that we want to cast from this deck that have the mana value 1, so may as well get them out of the deck. Other blue creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes tapped, draw a card and discard a card. Allowing us to just tap for the mana in order to draw a card, discard a card. Also gives our artifact creatures a buff until end turn target creature you control becomes a blue artifact in addition to its other types. So even if something's not an artifact, we could still turn it into an artifact to make sure we tap for that mana. But overall, just 3 good abilities, all of which just benefit this deck. Urza, Lord High Artificer. Whenever this enters the battlefield, creates 0/0 construct, +1/+1 for each artifact you control. We're going to be having plenty of artifacts, so you're going to be creating plenty of strong tokens. And these will also tap for that mana. And you also tap an untapped artifact you control to add blue. This way we could use our artifact creatures the turn they come out as well on top of that, even if we don't have the boots. Vidalcan Archmage for some additional draw power. And Virulent Silencer, whenever a non-token artifact creature you control deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters. We have plenty of artifact tokens. Maybe Blightsteel Colossus can't win the game right away. So let's make it so we have more poison counters on people. Let's scroll on over to the second half of the deck. We actually don't have any enchantments in this deck for once. Because we had too many artifacts and I figured we needed more instants and sorceries. For our instants and sorceries, Offer You Can't Refuse, Arcane Denial, Counterspell, Sword Counterspells, Brainstorm, we want to make sure we have a way to reorganize the top of our deck so we're not running into those lands. So let's go ahead and do it. Dramatic Reversal, in order to untap all non-land permanents we control, aka tapping for some additional mana, Pongify for some removal, Long Song for the counterspell, War of Invention, search the library for an artifact spell, put it onto the battlefield. You have to pay quite a bit of mana into this, but it tends to be worth it. Fabricate, in order to search for your best artifact. Ponder, once again, another way to reorganize the top of our deck. Preordain, another way to look at the top of our deck and decide what we want off the top. Reshape, as the cost to cast a spell, sacrifice an artifact. We have plenty of them that we are okay with sacrificing. Search library for an artifact spell with mana value X or less, and put onto battlefield and then shuffle. I mean, may as well get our best thing out of our deck. Maybe we'll have the 12 mana to use this for Blightsteel classes. And then dot cast with additional draw power. Academy Runes, in order to put target artifact from your graveyard on top of your library, allow us to get our best artifact to cast again, essentially right away. Buried Ruin, sacrifice this land, return target artifact from your graveyard to your hand. Good recursion there. Inventor's Fair, search your library for an artifact card, reveal it, put it into your hand. Search power is always nice. And you're going to have to drain more artifacts basically at any point to do that. And then we have some artifact land, sinking the super for a way to bounce our opponent's stuff or have become a land if we need it to be. And Orthos Titanic God Core, really good ability from the new set. Tap 12 power worth of creatures in order to add blue mana for each artifact you control. Basically, get 2 blue for each artifact we control. That means if we have Memnon on the battlefield. A super good ability. But that's the deck there. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you liked the video, like the video. If you have your own thoughts of how you run the deck, leave it down there in the comment section. And yeah, if you want to see more like this, we're going to be trying to cover all of Edge of Eternities commanders. Make sure you subscribe so you can stay tuned for that. Hope you have a great rest of the day.